stream. Well, good. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
there's another, not for Till. She's oh my goodness. Armenian. She lives in Sandy. And she's a really good player.
Played beautifully on that
Yeah.
concert.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful. Oh, for sure. Go ahead and have a seat. We're just waiting for everybody to gather. I never know how
Very
many
exciting.
people will
Well, of
come.
course not. You know, it was a quick.
A quick put together, but
Right.
you know, we meet every second Friday of every other month.
Every second Friday.
Of every other month.
So we're already live. So if you you can let people just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
I finally got it to work, and so it's good.
All right. I think I see someone else coming. You know, I'm gonna put a note on the door. Just come in.
Just a minute.
So here's something we have put together for our members. I just thought might be of interest for you to see, kind of part of our mission as a group. And that is something we offer to all the high schools, music teachers, choir teachers, college, to help their students be more educated about working.
Mm-hmm.
And then we give our members this to give out.
Oh, yeah.
And that QR code goes to our website so they can see our directory of pianists. And it's been so helpful when I get calls and I can't take a job, instead of going through my phone and selecting all my contacts and sharing with them. I just say, go to this website, or somebody.
And people have used
Smart.
Even there, or there's
It also brings some credibility, professionalism to an industry that's sort of not really organized. And I should report on the Florida competition, or the Florida group.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
I
share
know,
about
I
that.
know.
You saw all that email. We've inspired a group of pianists in Florida to start a guild, and they had a workshop for their high school students,
Mhm.
which we've done before too. Hi, Vera.
Hi there.
You have all of this stuff, right? So you
Yep.
don't need it. Okay. Well, I just in case somebody new comes, I want to have it.
So Vera, how are things? Are you playing these days, or you're?
I have one gig for the String Festival next Saturday.
Oh, good. That's good.
So, but I'm happy, you know, a little violinist. She's probably about, I don't know, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And she's never had an accompanist except the walking cold, and whoever's on staff plays for her while she plays.
Oh, that's so unsettling for little kids.
Yeah.
For anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So her mother was very excited that they were able to find somebody that she could work with.
Oh,
you know, and she thought, oh, we just need to come in once to check the tempo. And she came last week, and after we were done, she was like, so we can come again?
The excitement of rehearsing music.
Yeah,
and
seeing the value of.
Yeah.
And it's a hard piece,
Oh.
you know, for her age.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's a level 5 Suzuki. But you know, she's doing double bowings and triplets, and it's quite difficult. She's doing a really good job with it, but the work together is really helpful because it's more like a duet than it is, you know, just background.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great. So is this the one that will be at Lehigh Seminary Building, Lehigh High School, or the one at UVU? Okay.
Yeah.
There are 2 string festivals next Saturday.
And the reason that
Well, they
did they have too many kids? They had to split them up.
no, they're different groups. There's the Federated Music Clubs, and then there's Utah Valley String Festival, which used to be ASTA.
Oh, it
And they-
changes, see?
Okay.
Oh,
They
so
broke
valid.
away from ASTA. They didn't like the way it was going or whatever. They're just doing their own thing. But it's big. They have 200 or 300 kids come and play. But it'll be at the UVU Institute building for
Right.
the first year this year. It
Yeah.
used to be at American Heritage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a new venue and parking situation.
It's
Oh,
one of
the
those-
parking.
Well, and I
Oh, wow.
put my name on their accompanist list
Oh, good.
like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is the first time anybody's ever contacted me.
Oh, okay. So that's how they contacted you. It wasn't through CPGU
Yeah.
website. Okay.
I had a couple of calls through us, you know, one was, well, I think like 3 maybe. The first one was, can you do this? Yes. Oh, never mind, Mrs. Eccles is gonna do it. like,
It's too late to talk about it.
okay.
Okay, well, we have the diehards who come all the
I was in
time.
Mexico last month, okay? That's the only reason.
Uh-huh.
But I did watch the YouTube video.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Okay, did that work for you?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It was nice.
Thank
It
you,
was fun.
Julia.
Good,
Yeah,
yeah,
she's a
me
great
too.
person. Welcome to our meeting. I'm sure we'll have more people trickle in. We'll get started. Do we want to talk about competition now or
You
Should
can,
we-
and I'll share this message from Florida too.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Our competition is coming up, but I haven't set the dates yet. It'll be in April. But it's all by video, so we don't have to find a venue to have a live competition, which is good. Maybe next year we'll do a live competition since we're out of that pandemic mode. So I will be calling on a few people to help me like schedule things and judge and organize. So hopefully we had 17 people, I think, last year. No, 17 people participate.
And people have been asking about it
Good.
up in Logan, and they've said, "Are you still doing that competition?" So I think it's time to get the word out
Yeah.
as soon as we set a date and have a video deadline due, and make sure we've got our fees straightened out.
Yeah.
And then I guess we have to get a 4th annual, or is it 5th annual?
It'll be fifth
5th
annual
annual
artwork.
logo artwork. So
Andrew will help
if
with
you
that.
could start that, then we could have that out. We need to give them at least like 30 days.
I
if
know.
not, so.
We need the dates before
Yeah,
we do
so.
anything. So we were talking about adding 2 different categories,
Oh.
having an open category for ages
Perfect.
26 and up, non-professional,
Uh-huh.
or musical theater accompanying for the different age groups. Should we do both or one? Try
Could the
one?
music theater just fit into the open category? I mean, do you need to have it? What does open really mean?
Out of the age groups, so
Oh,
we have it
it's-
up to age 25 for now, but if a mom wants to like test out her abilities or somebody who isn't taking, who's not in lessons, because in our ages 10 to 25, they have to be taking lessons, right? So ages 26 and up would also include people who weren't currently taking lessons.
How would you make sure they're not professional though? I don't know. That's
The honor system? Does that still exist?
Mm.
I don't know.
It's fine to have one. It just seems like it's a little bit.
Too broad?
The money. What if you didn't have enough people in it to, like, you'd have to have at least a minimum of 3 to justify paying the winner,
Yeah.
and you may only have a first place because you have to
Yes.
have funds for that. So maybe
Yes.
I don't know. Let's just kick the idea around a little bit.
Okay. Well, or we can just try musical theater, add that category.
Yeah, one at a time, maybe, unless you get more inquiries for that particular
Okay.
skill set.
Okay. I'm thinking maybe then musical theater because kids will be asked to play all that stuff. And as we have the competition structured right now, it's just classical music, right? But those are good skills to
It's
grab.
collaborative. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So people have asked me about like chamber pieces where you're just judging the pianist only. So any category where the pianist is the one that's applying. So no 2 piano works or anything like that. Somebody did ask me once about
Oh,
that. No,
yeah.
no. Okay.
Probably not. I think just soloist and the pianist.
Okay.
Okay, so that's stuff. This is stuff that needs to be done. You want to talk about Florida?
Oh yeah. Let me just come over here.
We'll trade places.
Just so that I don't have to move the camera. Okay. So I don't know how many of you knew, but I don't remember how these teachers in Florida found out about us.
You went down and did a.
No, I didn't.
No.
I would remember. I would. No, so this was about a year ago. They were emailing us saying, are you a national group? Are you thinking about being national? How do you incorporate? How did you do your bylaws? And so we didn't have any traction on becoming national. We just said, we hope that you can form your own group inspired by us, but right now we don't have any plans to do anything national. So we sort of coached them on how to get going and how to reach out to other pianists. And this is kind of the panhandle of Florida and that northern. And so They did. And then she wrote back to me last month in January. She said, I wanted to update you on an exciting event that we hosted last Saturday at Florida State with the help of the MTNA chapter. We hosted 14 8th through 12th grade students for a young collaborative pianist workshop. Each student received a private coaching on collaborative repertoire and took classes in sight reading, hymn playing, and music theory. The day culminated with a faculty recital. I attached some photos from the event. It was a really fun and interactive day, and I'm excited we got to introduce these students to collaborative piano. A lot of it was inspired by your presentation and work with CPGU. That's how it was. I mentioned CPGU when I did my national MTNA presentation, and I knew there was some reason. So there are a whole bunch of photos that I can put out on our social media, or at least send to others. But we've done a workshop for teens a few years ago, and it was a little smaller scale, but it was just a workshop, like a master class for about 2 hours. But they sort of turned it into a whole day. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that is
And
fantastic.
so anyway, I just wanted to report on the love being spread around the country.
That's interesting that they did it in conjunction with the MTNA. I did reach out to the national president of MTNA, and he never did reply to me. When we first started this guild, I was hoping to eventually base it off of the structure of MTNA, where there are state chapters, but then there's a national umbrella over all the state chapters. And then I thought, MTNA is already in the business, so. I was wondering if we could, as a group of collaborative pianists, add a component to MTNA for collaborative piano guilds in each state, but he never did reply to me.
Was this Peter Mack?
No, it's
Gary Engel.
Gary Eagle.
the new one, just about a year ago.
I see. Yeah. Who replaced Gary?
Yes, and he runs a piano program at some university, and I'm sure he was overwhelmed with the.
The past president, Gail Berenson, is a wonderful pianist, collaborative pianist, and I think she would have been very interested in.
Okay, and my former piano teacher a long time ago, Phyllis Pfeiffer, was a national president.
Yes.
So she was the one who helped me, and she kind of got the ball rolling with the new president. But I need to, if we want to pursue that, I need to. Maybe we have. You can help
I have
me.
some ideas about that.
Okay.
Okay, I was gonna say make a start at the state level and talk to the state president first. Get her interested in it, and then she can take it up the ladder.
Yeah, or even
Several states.
I know both. I know our regional president, Southwest regional representative as well for MTNA.
Oh, okay. Are they in Utah?
Yeah.
They're in Utah. Oh, that's good. Okay.
that's the new one that was just elected.
Yeah, her name is Paula Manwaring.
Yes.
She's a friend. You know her?
I met her at the convention.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, lots to do, and we all do this on a volunteer basis, trying to
Of
keep our
course.
business going
Yeah.
on at the same time. So here we are. We're meeting. This is Samantha Adair. I want
Hi,
to
Samantha.
introduce you to Rex Woods. She is our social media maven. Since she's on the younger side, she knows how to do that kind of stuff. And she does a wonderful job of it, actually. Welcome, Rex Woods, to our little guild meeting today. We're excited to hear about your journey and inspire us to greatness today. Before I met you or knew of you, I worked with your son Alex Woods, who's a professor in violin at BYU, and he always talks about, well, my dad's gonna play this, and we're gonna do this concert with my dad. So, and then when I find out that he's a really famous guy, it's like, wow, good for you. And you perform many times at BYU.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're welcome to stay there, and we can point the camera at you. I think.
I can come more in the center of the room.
Okay,
Yeah,
or you
if you
can sit on the hard piano benches
That's
you're used to
fine.
doing.
Are these for me?
If you're interested, yes,
Yeah, I'd love
please. We have plenty of copies.
Yeah.
Move over here.
I'm gonna sit back there because I have kids and stuff to do.
This looks like a wonderful collaborative pianist piano.
I have an extra copy of the Brahms cello E minor. It's not anybody want. I'm giving it away.
I have that too.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
Anybody want Brahms?
I would take
Okay. All right. It's now the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. This is sort of
Let's.
free form. I wasn't quite sure what to think about and what to prepare, but I figured it's kind of get acquainted first, and then to share some ideas as we go along. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I think probably a lot of the elements of my story are going to be familiar to you because you probably experienced many of the same kinds of things. When I grew up in a large family, 7 children, and my father was a fine pianist. He had been trained classically, and then during the war years, he began playing a lot of popular music and dance music. And it sort of started, well, I think it started a while before he entered the war, but in his group, they were stationed at a burned out convent in Belgium at one point. And the sisters there had a piano, and some of the guys in his group played instruments. And so they got together and they asked if they could take this piano and put it on the back of the Jeep. And then they would go to little villages around there and play for dancing. At any rate,
Good PR.
yeah, music was a very important part of our family, and my parents insisted that all 7 children study piano and another instrument. And so I ended up accompanying all of my brothers and sisters, from the time I could speak practically. And then, like many of you, once I got into school, I played for choirs, and I was very fortunate because the junior high school choir director was she was a serious musician, and I went with her from the junior high to the high school. She transferred to the high school at the same time, and we did many of the great choral works that probably children shouldn't be singing, but we learned them anyway. And so I got used to reading open score, and those experiences led to playing in some voice studios in my high school years. I remember the first art song I ever played was Death of the Maiden of Schubert. And I didn't understand anything about what was going on, except that I loved it and knew that was something that I wanted in the future. We lived in Los Angeles at that time, and it was fortunate because you'd speak of musical theater. There were a lot of students that were studying popular music, and one studio I was referred to, he taught me a little bit about accompanying, pop songs, and how not to double the melody and to play from a lead sheet. And my dad would sit me at one piano, and he was at the other one, and he would make me read lead sheets with him as he was playing at the other end. So it was great sight reading. It was great using my ear and improvising and all those kinds of experiences. When I came to BYU, this was a real turning point in letting me know that, there's actually a world out there of accompanying. Clayne Robinson took me into the opera theater, and John Halliday taught me in oratorio choir, and Donna Dalton. I played for many of her students in those years, and learned a lot of that repertoire. A little interesting side note about Donna: when when I was a baby and we lived in Mesa, my father was teaching high school science, and Donna was in his class as a student, and she came and babysat for my older brother and sister and myself. And so we always have a good laugh about that. Loved playing for David's students, his daughter Allison, and Kelly Clark, who's a cousin that was also a violin student at the time there. So that was really an amazing experience, and that was the first year the Gina Bachauer competition happened, the year I graduated. And Jean Barr and Jan Nielsen Price both came and did presentations in connection with that competition. And that was the first time I'd heard about the first doctoral program in the United States at USC that Gwen Kildowski and Brooke Smith started in collaborative piano. At any rate, that I enjoyed their sessions, and at the time, most of the people in my life were preaching, don't go into music. Don't go into music. You need to do something that you can have an income that will support a family, and that's not going to be it. And so I had taken lots of prerequisites for professional school, medical school, and so my mind was kind of there. But I went to ASU after my mission for a while, which is where my family was living by then. And again, I found myself in the voice studio. It's just, I loved my piano work, and I was enjoying, I've always had piano teachers who happened to be wonderful collaborative pianists themselves. Reed Nibley was amazing accompanist, and Arnold Bullock at ASU was that also. But I found myself spending a lot of time in voice studios. When I graduated from BYU, I started a degree, a master's degree at the University of Arizona in genetics, because I was still thinking I'm going that direction. But I had to have something to make a living. It's so ironic. They say you can't make a living, but I had to have something to make a living. So I went down to the opera company and I said, I have some skills. I'd love to be able to help any way I can. They said, well, we just happen to have this wonderful baritone who has a grant from affiliate artists in New York, Richard J. Clark, and we'd love for you to work with him because he's doing opera performances, informances, they call them in the schools. So I met Richard, and fabulous Verdi baritone, and we put together some programs and started going to all these schools all over Arizona doing these performances. He was amazing. He had he was born and raised in Tucson in a Hispanic family. In spite of his name, he actually was pure Mexican American. And he, during those years, he won his first contract at the Metropolitan Opera, and then went on to do about 75 different roles. And
Wow.
just fabulous baritone. But that work with him really gave me a different view of the profession and a different set of skills in especially reducing arias to playable proportions and still making them sound the way we hope they would in a very orchestral sense. So that was a great experience. The summer, I very quickly fell back into music. I said, that's fine. I could do that other stuff. I was doing fine in my classes, but this isn't what I want. So I went over to the music building one night on campus, and I walked in, and it was an evening of opera scenes. And there was a young woman doing the telephone when I walked in, and she was just delightful, and it was just such a compelling performance. Long story short, she turned out to be my wife. And her name is Mary Peterson, and she was from Canada and had come to study with one of the teachers there. I switched my major back to piano for my master's, and completely immersed myself in ensemble music. I had two mentors there, Richard Faith, who is a wonderful composer and wonderful pianist, and also did a lot of ensemble music. And Paula Fan, who we're about the same age. She was about 9 months older than I was, but she was currently doing her doctorate with Koldovsky and Smith out at USC. So she was one of these people who, with her students, she just threw them into every possible situation she could to help them stretch and grow. And so I found myself now not only in the voice studio and in working with string players and that kind of thing, but she pushed me into the saxophone studio and into all the woodwinds, and so I began to assimilate that repertoire, and started to see the scope of what we do and what would be possible. That summer, I applied and got the chance to work with Dalton Baldwin and Ellie Ameling and Gerard Souzet at a workshop at the University of Colorado. And again, a new dimension, a whole different level of thinking about art song and presenting it in a way that it was just a deeper level than I had ever experienced. From there, I went to USC then for a semester and worked with Koldovsky and Smith. And also about that time, I spent a summer at Maryland in San Francisco. And this was a wonderful summer working with Margaret Singer, who's a fabulous coach, had worked in Hamburg in Germany. And I think she's back in the United States now, but she was one of the things that I really got from her was this whole idea of in the coaching studio, we can do so much without saying anything by how we are and by how we play, how we take the singer as they come in the room and find where their energy is. And through what we do at the piano and through our own body language, we can help bring them into a center place and then begin to work from there as you work together. This was a wonderful, again, different kind of set of skills. Also the languages, we had language coaches there and had Italian class every day. So with that, I felt like I was kind of ready then to apply for the jobs. and so my first job was at the University of Texas in Austin. And I couldn't have had a better place to begin. Jean Barr had been teaching there and had just gone to Eastman. And so that was the position that was open. And it was just perfect. David Garvey was on the faculty at that time. He was Leontine Price's accompanist, and she came several times to do workshops while I was there in residence. The piano faculty was just wonderful. By that, I mean, not only were they talented themselves, but it was such a collegial group. And I think that is one of the things that can be a model for us as a guild, one of the things that they did, if they were getting ready to do a solo recital, we would meet at somebody's home and they would play for all of their colleagues. And I think that's very unusual now that I've worked in a few different areas, faculties. It was just such a nurturing, non-judgmental kind of a space. We could go and help each other and give constructive feedback, and just felt like it was safe. There were lots of opportunities for doing forehand and two piano work with the different colleagues, and they had a wonderful recording studio there, which we used, and I began to understand how that worked. Then I took a detour. 5 years into it, I decided I was hearing all those voices again about a living, and so I took 3 years off and went to law school, and got a little insurance policy in my back pocket. But it's interesting how all these things that we do come together for us in our career. And it was great education. I loved law school. I knew by the time I finished that if I had my druthers, I would be right back in the piano studio. And
I can't remember who said this to me, but somebody at BYU said that the very best law students at BYU
were music majors. Well, yeah, Clayne Robinson called me and tried to talk me out of it because he had been an attorney in Palo Alto before he came to BYU. But at my age, there was no good talking to me about it. But I don't have any regrets because I ended up for many years working as an administrator, both as the associate director and the director of the school at the University of Arizona. And so all of that training really came back around to help me in some situations, especially personnel situations that came up. It was very useful. But again, the piano faculty at the University of Arizona was very supportive, and there were just many opportunities after that to accompany and do chamber music with a variety of people. The interesting thing about what we do is it doesn't matter. I'm going to say it doesn't matter whether the person that you're working with is an illustrious person up in the clouds or the student next door who's going to do an audition for Allstate. We will have all of those different kinds of opportunities once we put ourselves into the arena. And from my viewpoint, they all deserve to have a rich musical experience with us. And so since I've been, all along, no matter what I was doing, there were always those kinds of experiences as well, the kind that you're dealing with very frequently, of a student suddenly realizing that they have to have an accompanist for a concerto competition, and so they call you 10 minutes before and tell you, I'm going to be playing the last movement of the Barber Piano Concerto
today at your son's studio at 10:30.
Is
Third
that?
movement of the Barber.
Yeah. Well, there you are.
We have practice, and she doesn't want to go too fast. She's a freshman.
Oh yeah, it happens. So I just that's sort of a little about me, and I'm sure that a lot of that resonates with all of you because you've had different experiences that have pulled you into it and given you the bug and got you going. I was pleased to read on your materials that you had put the this sheet about networking and the value of networking. I think you sent that out at the beginning of this year, maybe, or no, has it been there for a while? But what we talked about, Jane and I, in thinking what we could talk about today a little bit, were how can we build ourselves as a community and help each other? How can we support one another? And so I had a few ideas about that. I think what you're doing already, what I'm sensing from your materials and just your general spirit, the ethos here, that there's a spirit of collaboration, there's a spirit of communication, good communication going on, and mutual respect. And I think those are the foundation of what we do. I think in supporting one another, just being there for each other to work on things, communicating well, and respecting each other. I think one of the things we can do is to share resources. Collaborative pianists, we've got lots of upcoming opportunities, performance venues, repertoire. These are the kinds of things that we can share. We can alert others when there's a project that's beyond the scope of what we ourselves can handle. And we have to know ourselves pretty well in order to do that. And this comes from a place where, even though we're banding together, in one sense we're competitors always at the same time, because we're trying to make a living, and we're trying to often, and depending on where we live, there may be many pianists and not a lot of opportunities. So how do you do in a place like that, where bloom where you're planted, kind of a thing? But I think if as long as we balance that and recognize that, yeah, there's enough for everyone, that if we do great work, all boats rise, then we feel like we have this a spirit of collaboration and mutual respect. I remember playing accompaniments for concerto competition down on the coast in Texas, in Kingsville. It was a large international young artist competition, and they asked me to come down and play. The first year there were maybe 8, and they would give me the scores well in advance, and then we would have a half an hour rehearsal and do it, which usually was adequate. Sometimes if the students were inexperienced and they hadn't played with the pianist before, or they didn't know the orchestra part very well, half an hour was the bare minimum, but usually it was fine. As the competition grew, though, I kept, every year they would send more, the 20 scores, or and it started to get out of hand. So yeah, I brought in one of my graduate students the first year. She actually, come to think of it, was from this area, Annette Emerson.
I know Annette.
Yeah, Annette Chan now, but
Now she's at University of Houston.
She was wonderful. But I had her come and join me, and pretty soon we both were bringing 20 scores apiece. And so we ended up inviting another pianist that we knew, and it just seemed like there was plenty of work to go around for us. All state competitions, if you're getting many requests and you start to say, how can I do all of this and everything else that I have to be doing? Yeah, we can let people know and refer people to others. And I love this idea of just, instead of having to write down all those names and addresses, just here's the QR code. There's plenty. Sometimes we get a request for a job that doesn't match our skill set. And I'll just say right at the beginning, that I don't do a lot of dance accompaniment, playing for dance classes. But I know this person over here who does that. I know the old time musicals, but I don't necessarily know the newest ones. And maybe there's a younger person who's really adept at that I might refer it to. On the other hand, if it's something that you haven't done before and you really want to do it, my son has kind of pushed me into an area of, in the Baroque music, of doing realizations, my own realizations that I hadn't really experienced when I was in school, and it's been fun and challenging, and I'm enjoying that a great deal. So I don't necessarily refer those to other people unless it's something that I don't really feel ready for professionally to go out there and do. You talked about a list of performance venues, and I think that really would be very helpful for us as a group to refer the people that we work with. A young person that's doing a senior recital for high school, and they haven't the faintest idea of where they could do it, and invite their friends to have a pretty good list of places. And not always venues that are public halls, but maybe homes that have good pianos, and would like to have that kind of thing going
What
on.
would you think about this idea? It has been boiling in my head that we, as a guild, raise money and find a little spot that we can call Guild Hall and rent it out as performance venues. We probably would get a lot of work.
Add some practice studios in.
Yeah. Well, the LDS Church is starting to sell some of their buildings that are not being used, and they want them to become community centers.
Yeah, I saw that article in the Tribune last week.
Yeah. The American Heritage Campus in Salt Lake is an old stake center. It was a multi-million-dollar refurb, but it's beautiful now. And studios for people who don't have, if they want to teach, they don't have a place to do that.
The Women's Club down in Bisbee, Arizona, have found a little old Victorian house up on the hillside where they had their monthly Women's Club meetings, and they actually ended up buying it, and the living room space was large enough that they could fit about 100 people for a recital. So they started a For the Love of Music series, and and then they rented out for other public events like that. Yeah, so that's a possibility I think that's a wonderful aspiration.
Big aspiration.
But you
Dream
never know.
big, come on.
I know, I do.
I have a wild idea that, other professionals are lawyers. Well, they band together as partners. Or, what if we banded together as partners? And then when all the phone calls started coming in for that one day in March in American Park High School. Be backing each other up.
Yeah, I think that's something that groups of teachers or groups of pianists could do together. I think your fundamental purpose is slightly different that as a guild. However, that doesn't mean that it's not possible. If it was still a small group and you decided as a group, gee, let's incorporate and become a concern, you certainly could do that. And I think it would be worthwhile certainly piano teachers are doing that more frequently now, and building their own little schools.
We also have to think about the nonprofit status and
Right.
LLC.
Exactly. Right now, as a guild,
control charging and stuff like that.
Right. But as a group of people could put an agency together if they wanted to do that and set it up as a business instead of a sole proprietorship, which you actually are right now.
Yeah, and there are challenges to that model. And I'm sure there are challenges to the partnership model.
But in the meantime, you're doing a lot of good by having referral service offered through the Guild. I think collaboration on projects, there are other ways we can collaborate. You're doing that with the competition. I think that's terrific. The performance that I saw at the university the other day, that was a wonderful example of collaborations between pianists. I was going to share one project that we did recently. Composer Dan Asia had found this music by Hans Wittenberg, who was in a concentration camp during the war and wrote a lot of music that was never available because it was sort of buried in the papers in one of these camps. So a bunch of us organized and we recorded some of these pieces, and there were 3 pianists represented on the recording, and then a bunch of wind players and singers and others. Hans Winterberg.
Can you pass that around?
But that's the kind of thing where we as a group, if you wanted to select, maybe there's a local composer or somebody that hasn't been brought to the public before, and as a group you wanted to do some of their work, and somebody could do some of the vocals, somebody could do some of the chamber music, and then as a group record and bring it to light. That's a way of maybe bringing notice to the group and to the Guild and their work.
Who funded the recording? I know that's expensive. That's an expensive proposition.
It was funded through the Dan Asia, the composer, worked with the Hillel Foundation in Arizona, or in Tucson, and they and some other people in the Jewish community there gave monies to
the project.
For the project. It's surprising how many groups like that there are out there who would be interested in. There's a database, at least through our university, that we were able to go to look for grants, and I'm sure that you'd have those resources at UVU, the research community there. I'm trying to remember the name of the database now.
I have a friend who knows a lot about that, Carmen Hall. And so
she's done a lot of grant writing.
She has a great chamber series that she promotes over it that happens at Matthew Braley Pianos now.
Yeah, I went to one of those.
Yeah, I went to the last one we did.
Yeah. So there's a surprising amount of money out there for projects like that.
We could coordinate or collaborate with a project in the future with her group. And we could have maybe winners of our competition be featured on one of her programs, and anyway.
Yeah.
The wheels start turning.
Yeah, and collaborative recitals that's similar to what you did, but maybe if in honor of a special occasion or a benefit for a particular group that is worthy of support. Those kinds of things do really well. I know when I was at Texas, we had a student in the accompanying program that died of AIDS, and the faculty and the students banded together and produced a fundraising event for his family. And that kind of thing, you have a lot of purpose, and it's a way to support somebody within our own ranks who's going through a difficult time. So that could be good. I mentioned earlier that how the way that at Texas, that was such a great faculty because there was enough trust that we could kind of support each other and give constructive feedback to one another. I think as you build trust within your group, that's another possibility. If you have a performance coming up, I know I would be delighted to host a run through at my home, for
Upcoming senior recitals or
something like that, where you don't, that you want to have some practice run throughs behind, but you don't necessarily want a critical audience there. And you would welcome, kind, constructive feedback from a colleague who is pulling for you. So I think those kinds of things can be very good. I have a friend who's not, he's a wonderful pianist. He doesn't practice professionally as a pianist, but he's organized a piano group, and people who are just love the piano, amateurs who happen to play well, come together and once a month and they play for each other. I think those are great opportunities, to try things out. I think attending each other's performances builds a lot of trust. It builds, you feel supported and respected by your colleagues when we attend one of those performances from time to time. We're all very busy, so sometimes that's very difficult to schedule, but I think it's something to keep in mind. I think for those of us who teach piano, inviting another guild member to come and have a day where our students are playing ensemble repertoire, and to do a group class and invite a colleague to come and lead the class can be a very good experience.
That's a good idea.
Another mouth, that's
Yeah.
not your teacher, says the same thing.
Yeah.
And they listen to
Exactly,
that.
or in a different way,
Yeah.
And sometimes, and we certainly learn from one another, sometimes ways of getting at the same thing that we might not have experienced before. Another thing is to celebrate achievements, as many as possible, no matter how small or how large within the group. If we can celebrate achievements together, that's a wonderful thing. I think what you just did here with this group in Florida, and celebrating their achievements and thinking of our community beyond our own at the same time can be a wonderful thing. Sometimes we miss opportunities to nominate somebody from our group for honors and awards that come up. That was one of the things I really enjoyed as an administrator, was learning of opportunities or learning of awards and then nominating people within our faculty for those. In Arizona, they had the Arizona Arts Council had some yearly awards, and one of them was for longevity of distinguished achievement. And Gordon Epperson, a cellist, had been on our faculty and had, even after he retired, taught years and years and years, many cello students. And so it was a thrill to nominate him for that award, and then be able to take he and his family up to Phoenix and receive this from the governor. I think any little things that we can do to support one another in that way and celebrate achievements is a great thing. And then the networking and connecting, which you have thought about, I know, a lot. You're using social media. I think that's great. I think working with other professional organizations, and you mentioned MTNA. I think MTNA, ASTA, the Flute Club, all the different instruments have their own little groups, and to strengthen relationships between those groups is really an important
Well,
thing.
the thing is, we can cross over all of those group barriers, not
That's
barriers,
right.
but the borders.
One of the
Singing.
opportunities, I think finding out what the needs of organizations and then showing them how we can fulfill them is a good strategy. So if you think of MTNA, what are they needing? In order to foster better ensemble skills, reading skills. They have this wonderful Achievement in Music program, and they have a curriculum for theory that goes from grades 1. If we had established a curriculum for accompanying, the kinds of accompanying experience you might have at grade 1 on up through, that could work in tandem with their theory, technique, and repertoire goals, that might be an option that some students would take with their teachers that would help them to develop these skills right along with their piano skills. I've not seen that. The Toronto Conservatory has, of course, the different curricula for each grade level, but an actual curriculum either for accompanying or for chamber music, or you could set it up separately, one for vocal accompaniment, one for instrumental, and one for chamber music experiences. And I think we would see more people entering the chamber music competitions than, I don't know how it is in Utah, but in Arizona, the chamber music competition for MTNA would come along and there might be one entrant.
Yeah, it's small here too.
And why does it have to be that way? It's simply that's not part of the curriculum for most piano teachers. And
It's a shame.
yeah, because everything and this, I'm preaching to the choir here, but everything that we do in ensemble work and as an accompanist comes back to enrich our solo playing. And I think it's important for us to always be working on some solo repertoire at the same time, because that's where we take all that we have heard and experienced and use that in our imaginative piano playing. Boy, if you played 40 Schubert Lieder, you're going to come back and play those sonatas much more beautifully than you would have otherwise. So it's I think there are some opportunities to feed into some of the programs in MTNA
That's brilliant.
that are there.
I know the incoming president, Carmen, and she does a lot with chamber music with her students, and would very welcome a secondary track of curriculum. I helped form the current AIM requirements.
Oh yeah.
When I was the AIM chairman about 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen it. It's interesting you mentioned that, because when students get to college and they're like, oh, would you like to choose collaborative now? It's assumed that they've already had this preparation like they do for all their solo instruments, and it's almost none, because a lot of teachers are just so worried about, okay, you have to make these audition requirements for your piano, and that's a lot. They're so high. And
It's a lot, yeah.
So that's kind of where all the focus becomes, is getting that classical sonata and prelude and fugue memorized.
And it wouldn't be for every student. Some students, they may just not have the bandwidth to add that.
And it takes a lot of bandwidth, that's true.
Right.
To do all of it.
But if it were an option out there, it would certainly give a piano teacher who didn't have a lot of that experience a way into the field.
And that's what they're doing at UVU. They have a collaborative piano certificate.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to audition and be in the piano. You have to pass a piano audition. I'm waiting to see when BYU is going to do something similar.
Yeah, they've always had a lot of ensemble opportunities for people, and I think as the majors were always required to do some accompanying, but it was not always, at least in my day, it wasn't coached by the pianists, and it just was sort of like roulette. If you landed in a studio where the teacher was trying to foster a good ensemble experience between the accompanist and the soloist, then that was great. But if not, you were on your own.
We were just a piece of furniture.
Right. Yeah.
It seems, I don't have a really insider view, but it seems like the solo pianists don't get as much collaborative piano training or experience, or like they're not interested, because like I know that so many of the other solo musicians just have a hard time finding people, and it's like, well, there's a whole ton of pianists, but they're just not available or interested or capable of that exact niche so much.
That surprises me here. At
Right.
being
You
not
wouldn't
being a
expect
not
that.
Utah person. I didn't graduate here. I didn't do music here. I did it in Colorado and in Denver. And the college there, it was a requirement. If you were a pianist, you had to be an accompanist, and they would assign you, your person. And so I played with some marvelous instrumentalists and was just so inspired, that clarinetist, who could just make that instrument come alive. It was just the most amazing experience, and doing the little groups. What are they called? The chamber groups. Yeah. Each semester we had to be in one of those, and it was just very enriching and eye-opening for someone who, went to college as an adult and hadn't had that experience of all these different things that you could do as a piano player. I had no idea.
Well, I have to talk to Jared about what they're actually doing. It's a wonderful, talented group of people. I mean, just Professors Holden and Buse and what's the lady's name? Jihae. Oh my goodness, she gave such a wonderful talk at the convention. It's a wonderful group of people, and so I'm sure that, and Scott, I know, is a wonderful accompanist, and Jared just did the Italian Счастливого the other night, and so there's great opportunities for the students to experience their professors playing, and I'm sure doing a lot of accompanying. But I think, there are things that we can do to support and enrich the institutions and the whole idea of ensemble playing throughout our community, wherever it is. And that's the wonderful thing about actually having a guild. You can have some united efforts, so you don't feel like you're just off on your own.
It elevates it to a level of professionalism that we've always treated ourselves as, but not generally received that from sometimes, unfortunately, music teachers themselves,
From the public.
or from the public. Yeah, and it's a long journey. We make little achievements along the way, and
I'm
Leave a
sort of
legacy.
from the mindset philosophically, because at both institutions we sort of felt this way. We toyed with the ideas of having a separate degree track in each of those places, and then we decided ultimately that we felt that that this was a part of being a pianist, that the pianists in the largest sense do it all. And some focus more exclusively on one thing than another, but that we should all be striving to be capable of doing, everything that we possibly can. So rather than separate it out, if we had a master's degree at the University of Arizona in accompanying, but they still did a solo recital also. So they had a vocal recital, instrumental recital, and then they had a solo recital. Because it was just so important, we felt that we'd be complete.
We have a couple of
Yes.
members who got their masters from ASU.
ASU is the Tempe.
Okay, sorry.
Tucson is, yeah, Paul Kohler, I think,
And
has.
Christy Lehman.
And Christy Lehman, yeah. Paul's was not in ensemble playing, but he strives to do that and to improve as an accompanist and ensemble musician. He's very has many interests. His improvisation and composing and does a lot of other things. So, well, it's just a pleasure to meet you all. If there are any other.
Go ahead and ask questions, or you can come back and have some food and still ask questions.
And I did bring a few CDs if some of you still use those. These just could be reference things more than anything. This is one that I recently did with Jerry Kirkbride, who was one of the founding members of the Dorian Wind Quintet. He retired recently, and then Sarah Fraker, who's a wonderful oboist. These are trios for piano, oboe, and clarinet. And then this was a trio that I was in called the Bruch Trio. Our first recording was all the Bruch pieces for clarinet, viola, and piano. This one, it has the Kegelstadt Trio, Mozart, and trios of Gordon Jacob and Jean Francais. The interesting thing here is the violist was Jesse Levine. He taught at Yale for many, many years. And the violin or the viola that he owned was the one that belonged to Mozart.
Oh my goodness.
So it was just such a thrill to play with him because I got to touch it.
Was it used in the recording?
What?
Was it used in the recording?
Wow.
And then this is a recording that I did with my daughter-in-law and my son, all music of Larry Lowe from, he was on the faculty, the horn player and a composer at BYU. And so that's just an example of what I've been doing with my kids.
Yes, thank you so much. Wow,
You just
thank
put those on
you.
the piano and
This has been wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
So inspiring. Like I filled up the whole page. It's like, this is what we can do with the kid. And we're going to ask him to help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming. We have food in the back, and our next meeting will be second Friday in May, to be determined.
Yes. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, the good thing
Okay.
is